10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Like this, baby, you a heart stopper.
Woke up in my city, yeah, I feel like Big Papa. I feel like Big Papa.
Nah, you gotta go like this, and like this, baby, you a heart stopper.
Woke up in my city.
So, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for yet another episode of W.A.G.E, Women Advocating for Gender Equality. Tonight, our topic is going to be centered around why it's important for America to absolutely love Black people, because Black people love everybody, right? Yeah. So, with that being said, we have some wonderful panelists on to lead the discussion, but you are also included to be a part of this discussion tonight. So when we return, we're going to be talking about an article that came out on August 24th of last week that was written by Yusuf Ishmael. And the article was very debatable in the community because there were some statements that were very fiery that were made by our current mayor, W.A.G.E Baraka, here in the city of Newark. And these statements basically said, in the headline reads, Newark's mayor blames gun violence on poor single-parent women. This was extremely inflammatory, and we're going to discuss this tonight. So bring your comments, bring your popcorn, and let's get ready to begin. Okay, so hello. I just want to start open it up by just saying to give a warm welcome to our panelists this evening, starting with Mrs. Io Peterson. Hello and welcome back.
Hello.
Hello, so happy to have you on this evening. And
Thank you.
well as Ra'a Khan with his expert advice and wisdom.
Peace. How y'all doing?
Peace.
How y'all feeling tonight? Peace to the divine
really great.
Peace to the queens. Really Thank you for having me back on here.
Thank you for coming. So people are busy and they center their they rescheduled their schedules, if you will, to join us in very meaningful conversation because these conversations need to be had on not just a community local level, but a national level as well. So we're going to start off right with without any further ado, let's get to this article. So basically, again, the caption reads, Newark's mayor blames gun violence on poor single-parent women. In a recent anti-violence march, Mayor Baraka stated that single-parent women and their criminal children were responsible for the gun violence that we're experiencing here in the city of Newark. So this is a big deal, right? And this is something that we're just going to take a minute to see, what are the thoughts just on that subject matter. Is this something that you think is coming from a genuine place? And we'll start with Io for a few moments. We'll go to Rod, and we'll come back to talk about why this discussion needs to be had this evening.
It's funny you should say, is this coming from a genuine place? Because the first thing I was thinking was, this is totally disingenuous. The reason we're having a surge in gun violence in the city of Newark has nothing to do with poor single Black women. The reason we're having, and it's not just gun violence, the reason we're seeing a total shift in the city of Newark is because we are within the state of New Jersey, which is a sanctuary state, and the city of Newark is a sanctuary city. So we do have a lot of violent criminals coming from other countries.
That's right.
Legal immigrants that are causing problems in our cities. But our political leaders are very disingenuous, and they would like to put the blame on the laps of single Black women when they know for a fact that it came from the immigrants that they let come into our city. That's what the problem is.
Wow. Excellent commentary there. Ra, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you have something to add, something different?
Yeah, I agree with Sister Ayo. It's a lot of these, it's different foreign groups that come here that bring their crime element with them. And they're not speaking on that because, like I said, we don't get proper political representation being Black.
Right.
You understand? We're the only ones that get, the brunt of the backlash when crime goes up. Everybody looks at the Black community. They're not really dissecting and getting to the core of really, is this just the Black community or is it also these foreign groups that's coming here bringing a crime element here? That's bringing drugs into this community, that's bringing gangs here, and they practicing that, because if you look at some of these foreign groups, they're coming from war-torn countries, and they bringing this behavior over here as well. So I agree with Sister Ayo, but like I said, they use us as, they use us as the diversion. They use us as the ones, like I said, everybody want to make us the blame when crime goes up. But they're not really evaluating and looking and seeing, is it just us or is also foreign groups that come here that are also contributing to the problem? So I agree with Sister Ayo 100% on that.
Absolutely. Great commentary there again. So the problem with this, right, is I think that this could be very, very dangerous when you start to single out women, right? The most weakest disenfranchised group, right, ever in the nation. And it's just like what are we doing here? And we have to wonder, right, women being 80% of the voters here, is this a platform that he would have presented before election day? And it's so ironic because I watched this mayor do rallies all over the city against crime, right? But yet when this crime takes place, I don't personally feel that the platform has been used to really say, hey, we need programs here. Hey, we need whatever we need, right, to really significantly decrease crime. But his thing is, hey, it's not me. And in fact, he said at one point in the article that it's not my job to raise your children. You know that your children have those guns in the bedroom.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
And he goes on again to just make a lot of inflammatory statements. But meanwhile, right, the things that would lend our children to being better children, right? And this is what the conversation is really about. There are so many people who feel that, yeah, this is true, right? What he's saying has the potential to be true. And I'm not going to say so many people, but it was a small fraction of people who said that, yeah, this is true. It's the parents, it's these women's fault. They're not raising the kids. And primarily, I've seen women say this, and that was like really scary to witness. So we have to debunk this now at a fundamental level where it's trying to arise. This is not something that we could allow to escalate in our community as a truth, because it's most definitely not. But like I said, many of us are not engaged in conversation pertaining around this. So we take on that self-guilt, like, oh my God, well, maybe if I was with my baby's father or husband, or maybe if I wasn't poor, right? What is the foundation here? But who are we as a people? So before we start laying blame, can anybody just tell me that? Like, can we tell the audience, who is Black people? When I say that America needs to love Black people, what comes to your mind? What are the thoughts that you have? And Ayo, we'll go back to you with that. What are the thoughts that you have? Who are Black people?
Okay, that's a great question. I'm going to preface this by saying that I had these same questions years ago, like my entire life. And so what I did is, as I got older, like when I was 30 years old, I went back to college and I majored in African American studies to figure out what's going on with the Black community. Why, when we are the most gifted people in the world, why, when we are the strongest people in the world, why are we always at the bottom? I could not figure it out for the life of me. So like I said, I went back to college. I majored in African American and African studies, and I did learn a lot. I got a degree at Rutgers. I learned a lot. But I learned much more after I graduated. I graduated like 15 years ago. So I learned much more since then. And what I've discovered over the years is the narrative that we have learned throughout our lives in education, our history, our so-called history, religion. It's all lies. It's all lies to keep us in a place of ignorance. And while we're in that place of ignorance, other people can profit off of our ignorance. So the first thing is, who is Black? What is Black? Black, as many of us know, is it is the absence of color. So Black has no standing in law. But who are people that are considered Black? In this country, the only people that are considered Black are those who are indigenous to this country.
So wait, Ayo, are you saying that people who come here from Africa are not considered Black? Is that what you're saying?
They're legally not considered Black. They will say they're Black to me and you in our face, but they're legally not considered Black because Black is a status in this country.
Okay, thank you.
And it's the bottom of the totem pole, like I said, and we're the only people who have that classification. So yes, people can be quote unquote melanated or people of color. Those are terms that I genuinely don't like because it's very misleading, but people can be that. They could look like me and you, but they do not have the same classification. With that being said, with us being the only people considered Black, everyone can take their ills, their problems out on us. And the biggest problem that we have in the Black community is our politicians, because they have sold us down the river. They have led us astray. I mean, they have misrepresented us. They have undermined us. They have totally betrayed us as a people. All of our political officials, our so-called leaders, anybody who stands in front and represents the Black community are often the worst people to do the job. So the Black people, again, are the people who are indigenous to this country, meaning that when you trace your history back, you don't go past America or the Americas.
Right.
You don't go to any other place. It's like you're here.
Right. Okay. So let's pause right there for 1 minute.
Okay.
Rod, your take on this. Again, the question is, who is Black people? When I'm saying that America needs to love Black people, is there even a Black people? What is your take on this? And the people who come from Africa, what's your take on this? In different places in Africa, are these people Black too?
Now, Black, like I agree with Sister Ayo, the social construct Black mean legally dead. It's a dead status. You don't really have an identity under law. You're lawfully dead. You're not looked upon as a people. You're not looked upon as a nationality. So they're saying we're culturally absent. Now, as far as what we contributed here in America as Black people, we have been the architects, the innovators, the culture, the soulful consciousness of this country, and somewhat we have been the most patriotic because we fought in every war to keep this country safe, to keep this country functional, and still to have this country still stand as a country or recognized as a country. So when it comes to who we are systemically, we are legally dead. We don't have our identity. And when you look at the original American dream, like Dr. Claude Anderson said, he said the original American dream was for people to come from other countries, come here, get free land, and have Black people work that land as slaves to help grow their generational wealth. Yeah. Nowadays, you have the same philosophy, it's just more modernized. Now, people come from far countries, they come into our communities, open up businesses, you know what I'm saying, and have us patronize those businesses so they can end up growing their generational wealth. So Black, right now, in this modern day, systemically, Black is a culturalist and nationalist people that gets misused, mistreated, and have no standing in law. Now, we're talking about organically, we are the indigenous people of this landmass that once used to control this area, and we're the indigenous people that had different republics here together, you know what I'm saying, as one standing land, but as also a sovereign people. So black is two different things going on here. Systemically, we're a culturalist and nationalist people. Organically, we're the indigenous people of the Americas. So that's how I feel about it.
Okay, excellent commentary. Listen, I'm going to share a comment, and I'm going to start with you this time, Rod. And the comment is from Kana Chef, if I pronounce that correctly. And the comment reads, "Good evening, everyone. This discussion needs an opposing point of view, preferably someone from the mayor's camp who can defend his statement. Creating a new narrative for a foreign element being responsible for the gun violence when people are in the streets and are watching these young gang members, most of whom happen to be single parent homes, commit random acts of violence daily." Okay, so what I'm going to say in terms of this particular comment myself is that it's a couple of things here, right? Number one, first and foremost, we have sent at least 4 emails to the mayor to meet with him. So we don't have access to even find out ourselves what he's thinking. We don't have access to him in this community where he says everyone is shooting, but he's telling us New York streets is safe at the same time. But he's saying that we're all, you know, the crime is high because of us, right? And so he has a security detail. We don't. And he still is maybe afraid to meet with us, you know, the common public. And if I remember correctly, he was even afraid to debate these issues publicly during the most recent mayoral election. So with that being said, we don't have any way to do that. And it seems like a good idea. But I do want to put 2 thoughts on the table for my panelists to consider. When we're talking about crime in our community, right, and shootings, do you feel that it's only gangs that are shooting in the community? Because I'm going to be honest, a lot of the young people have expressed fear to me about the shootings, that they're not the ones doing it. They're not the ones that do it. So wait, I want you, Rob, we're going to go to you first. I want you to speak on, I want you to speak on, both of you, if you may. Is it just the gangs that you believe that are shooting in the community? Maybe where these guns are actually coming from in the community, right? Because again, Raheem on 18th Street didn't get the gun from Mark on Irvin Turner Boulevard, a sawed-off shotgun, something that came from a war country. They never even left the block. So that's really hard to decipher. And then lastly, do you think that it's maybe another agenda? You know, we've heard about organ harvesting.
Yeah.
Things. What are your ideas and thoughts on that?
I believe there's government operatives that's involved in that. I don't think it's just gangs. Because you can ask some gang members, ask them this: who started your set? I bet you the average gang member can't even answer that question.
Wow.
If you don't know
this is when you need a bomb to go off, and we gotta get some sound effects.
You need sound effects, SHEILA.
That is a great point, Rob. Please repeat it.
Ask the average gang member who started your set in your neighborhood and see if they can answer that. And if they can't answer that, which the average one cannot answer that, then you're going to have to start looking more at a government setup or conspiracy going on in our communities. So if they can't answer, and I asked this years ago, you know, certain gang members like, hey, brother, who started your set? They couldn't answer that. And I'm talking about Blood and Crips. They couldn't answer that question. They don't know who started their set. Wow. So do I believe if the government complicit in it? I think there was government operatives complicit in it. Yes. So do I think it's just gang members with these murders? No. No. I don't believe that. I think that the government's involved in it. I think they play a major part in it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think that they also responsible for starting some of these sets in the community in certain sections of the city. Because like I said, if you don't know the thorough history, you know what I'm saying, on who started your set, then that raises questions. Well, if you don't know who started your set, then who started your set?
That's
So
right.
yes, I believe that. Yes, I believe that. I believe the government is complicit in that. I don't think it's just gang related murders. And when you're talking about organ harvesting, yes, I think that all plays a part in it. For those, you don't want to be on a wait list. You're very wealthy. You need a kidney. You need a new heart. You don't want to wait on no wait list when you could pay for one now. So I think that yes, it plays a part in all of that. The organ harvesting, the organ trafficking, human trafficking. Yes, it plays a major part in that. I think that yes, it's not just gang related.
Thank you so much for that, Rob. Now, Ayo, have you heard anything that would support that in terms of organ harvesting? Any young people ever that was maybe hurt or disappeared and they were found maybe with missing organs? Have you ever heard anything that would corroborate that at all?
Well, I want to get back to the question that was asked. Okay, so yes. the question implied that that the crime is happening from gang members from single parent households.
Right.
My question is, can you qualify that statement? Because I said that it was foreigners that's doing it. When I say foreigners, I mean immigrants. I didn't say how long the immigrants were here. I just said that we're a sanctuary city and a sanctuary state. The problem that we're having in Newark, New Jersey right now is the indigenous Black community is being overwhelmed by foreign groups that look like us. So nobody ever qualifies when someone is arrested and they say it was a Black male. Nobody's questioning when did this Black male come to this country?
That's right.
What country is this Black male from?
Yeah.
So when I say they're immigrants and they're foreigners, they are immigrants and foreigners doing this. That's why there's a spike in crime. We've had a spike in crime since Newark became a sanctuary city. Since New Jersey became a sanctuary state.
That's right.
And that's not even debatable. Getting back to what you were asking me as far as the organ harvesting, there was a sting done. Oh my gosh, I don't want to lie. I want to say in the past 10 years, I could be wrong. There was a sting done in New Jersey where it was, and it was documented. You can look it up. It was on the news where Jews were complicit with judges, councilmen, hospitals, and funeral homes with stealing organs throughout the state and shipping them back to Israel. So this is not just conspiracy theory. This isn't just talk or hogwash. This actually happened and is happening. We have a serious problem in not just New Jersey, but the entire world with organ harvesting, human trafficking, crimes against humanity, and it's being led by our political officials. So I'm gonna say that, deep-throated clearly that we have a problem. And like I said, you can look all this information up. I'm not making it up.
Absolutely. So. Thank you, Ayo. Rod. Now he's saying it's all women's fault. So could it be the fault of? And I love this terminology that you brought to us, right? Murder porn. Can you describe what murder porn is to us and tell us how that may play a part?
Murder porn is just the infatuation of doing murders or actually witnessing murders or watching murders on the internet. It's when you're looking at it as a form of entertainment, or you become so desensitized with murders, you look at it as pretty much as a form of, how could I put it? In a way where it feeds your it's a pleasurable desire to see it. Like you're anticipating on watching murder. You know what I'm saying? Murder porn, like I said, it's an infatuation or obsession with watching murder, or for those that commit murders, you know what I'm saying? You are, it gets your adrenaline going. It's an adrenaline rush. You're infatuated, you're obsessed with it. You understand? And like I said, the internet, World Star, when you look at the views from people, like there could be a murder that was filmed, and then somebody ended up posting it on social media, the views just shoot up quick. It got hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of views.
Right.
This is a form of entertainment now. We have been totally desensitized, not all of us, but there's a faction of us that got totally desensitized to murder, especially black death.
Right.
You know, so yeah, that's what I mean by murder porn. How now it's a form of entertainment. How people are infatuated by seeing it, witnessing it.
Right.
You know, so yeah.
And so this next part, right? And again, because we're accusing women of, being the reason why. So we send our kids to a school system, right? Where our current school board are people who are handpicked by the mayor. Yet and still, we know that our children are not learning how to write cursive. We know that the Amistad Act that was passed in 2002 still has not been implemented. They have attempted to do small things like announce that it's being implemented, but if you ask the average kid walking around, they don't know their history. They don't know anything other than Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks still. So how do we blame that on moms who are a product of the exact same school system? Because recall, these issues that we're dealing with in 2022 are nothing new. These are issues that we've been dealing with even before we were born. People were fighting for equitable education, right? What has been done in the last 8 years that maybe has helped parents, right? With education, and do you see education going to a positive place? Today, we talked about some of the changes. Instead of teaching the kids anything to do with financial literacy or something to help them possibly become, have opportunities in this capitalistic society. We're talking about them learning about masturbation. That's what's on the curriculum for first grade. Right. Okay, that's a fact. You could Google that. And it's just nothing conducive to being productive. So if the children aren't learning anything in school, and this is the next part, and you guys could comment anywhere in between here. We're talking about now having not substitute teachers, but actual teachers. These are kids, I want you to get this, young people matriculating out of elementary school, high school, with too many of them having a 3rd, 4th grade education, because as we know from COVID, nobody passed the state test in the entire city. Okay. And that's inclusive of charter schools too. No school had 100% accuracy in terms of passing the test. So these kids are not, I guess it's all COVID fault. They can't read or write at all. You've been in school all your life, but you can't read or write at all. So now these kids are coming out. What opportunities do they have? We're no longer in an industrial society, right? Where are the programs? Where the after school? When we grew up, there was after school programs, boys and girls clubs. We don't see any of that. So, but what we do see is, like you said, the murder porn that's constantly on.
That's right.
On and off social media, right? And we see this gender war being, I'm not going to say spearheaded, but we see it, adding fuel to the fire with the current administration, with these flammable comments that's being made. Like, what do you guys think about that? Like, are you going to blame the parents for the school system too? Because kids without opportunities becomes kids in the street many times selling drugs. Selling drugs, we know, comes along with a contingent of crime. And many times murder happens with that. I don't know. What do you guys think about that,
Sheila, that's a really big question.
I know.
It's like, oh, that's a lot to unpack. I'll start off with the whole education.
Okay.
This is not just a Newark or a New Jersey problem.
Right.
We do not have an education system. We have an indoctrination system.
Yes.
In effect, since we were born, before we were born. This started in the, I want to say the early 70s. So,
right.
We're a part of the X generation. So this started before we even started school. The Department of Education began their programs of indoctrination. We no longer have classical education in this country. Our education system was set up when we were little. Our education system was in place to help us be button pushers, pencil pushers, paper pushers. So we were geared to work for someone else, to make someone else rich, to, fund someone else's lifestyle, but not our own. Today,
Right.
we don't even have that system, and it really doesn't matter because education, like I said, is indoctrination anyway. So a person could actually do much better if they never had a day of public or charter education in their life.
Right.
Because I homeschooled my kids and they're doing just fine without going
Absolutely.
to school. So that's that. Getting back to what you were saying about the like Black women having to take the brunt, or single parent households having to take the responsibility for all the ills in society when kids are going. Now, this is what doesn't make sense to me. If kids are going to school every day and they're failing, that is an indictment of the school system, not the parent.
Absolutely.
That
Yes.
makes no sense to me for educators to blame parents for their failures. A
That's
lot
right.
of times in Newark, and this is getting back to what you were saying about the whole high school students becoming substitute teachers. That's not throughout the city of Newark. They started that program, if I'm not mistaken, in the East Ward, and also I think at Barringer High School. So it was Eastside High and Barringer, if I'm not mistaken, because I remember those articles came out a few years ago in the paper, and I was up at arms because I was like, well, what about the West Ward? What about the Central Ward? What about the South Ward? I mean, what about the North Ward?
Right.
Um, because in the city of Newark, it's very segregated on who lives where.
Right.
That's number one. So in the North Ward, we have a lot of Hispanic people living there. We have a diverse population in the North Ward, but for the most part, you can rest assured that those people are either European or come from a Spanish speaking country. And in the East Ward, we have what used to be Brazilian, then I'm sorry, Portuguese, then Brazilian, is now an Ecuadorian population, a huge
Absolutely.
Ecuadorian population. In the South Ward,
Hmm.
um, a lot of Caribbean and Blacks. The Central Ward has more of a diverse population because that's where all the businesses are. So it's more high end because they've built a lot of buildings, like high rise buildings that people can live in now.
Right.
And also in the West Ward, you have the largest residential population and the largest quote unquote Black population, but that population is infused with Africans, Caribbeans, and South Americans. So the reason that this is really hard to dissect is when they come out with statistics talking about education and the failures in the city of Newark, again, they do not qualify that by saying, when did these students come to this country? Do these students speak English?
Right.
Do they know American history? And the answer is no, no, no. Because Newark is such is I didn't say this before, but Newark is also a port city. So we have a lot
Hmm.
of people from a lot of different countries living here. With
Right.
that being said, like I said before, the Black population, the indigenous Black population, is very overwhelmed in the city of Newark. So you have no idea if the numbers of students failing, how much of that is due to the poor education system, or to the fact that these people just came to this country or recently came to this country. You
Great
see what I'm saying?
point.
So it's hard to say why the numbers are the way they are. The
Right.
other thing with Newark is a transient city. So
Absolutely.
I remember when I was in
Hmm.
college, somebody made a comment about, oh, in Seattle, the average income is this, and people live in houses and this and that. And I was like, yes, people from all over the world move to Seattle because because the companies that are headquartered there are some of the best companies in the world to work at. So people from all over the world go there to live. Whereas in the city of Newark, Newark is a city where people get their footing, where they learn to be American, they learn English, and then they transition from Newark and go to the suburbs, South Jersey, or another state. And then we have the next rotation of people. So the people who are what I want to say, native to Newark or people who are entrenched here, what ends up happening is our population decreases over time. Because another thing that happens is because we are such a transient city, the people who were born and raised in Newark do the same thing as well. They after a certain age or a certain time in their life, they move as well. So Newark is very transient. So it's hard to dissect that sentence or that statement and make a lot of sense of it.
Right.
So it's a lot. So yes, the numbers are low. That's due to the fact that the teachers in Newark, for the most part, don't live in Newark. Half of them don't even live in Essex County. They don't have a vested interest in Newark. The only reason they're here is because they make a lot more money than if they taught in the cities where they live. That's number one.
Right.
Number two, the students may, and this is something that I found very interesting. One of the former school board superintendents wanted to make sure that some funding that came for, Newark Public Schools included like a large percentage. No, it wasn't just the former superintendent. It was also the NAACP. They wanted to make sure that some funding that they received included a set aside for ESL. And if you're an American, English is not your second language.
Right.
So if they're focusing on that level for English as a second language, they know for a fact that most of these students are immigrants. And so these numbers reflect the fact that these people are not American.
Excellent.
So that's why we have failing school systems.
That was a great unpacking.
Yeah, that's why the numbers are low, but nobody wants to talk about that.
No, well, why would we talk about that, Ayo, when it's so simple to just throw the women under the bus? So,
exactly. But then you'll have to ask who's bringing these people over here.
Yeah. Who's allowing that? Because
exactly,
we know when people arrived at that border in Texas, they sent those people straight over here to Newark. Why is that not a part of the speeches? Why is that not a part of the public platform that you're sharing with people? While you're sharing that women are the devil and they just they're just the crime.
Well,
but wait. Let me surprise you because I want to give Ra a chance to comment. Ra, what do you think about some of this information that is being unpacked? And as from a man's perspective, do you agree with throwing of women under the bus to alleviate yourself from the responsibility of crime in the city that you're leading?
No, I think that it is wrong. The fact that they're going to blame single mothers on the reason why the crime is up. The thing is that you got to look at the community structure. You got to look at the educational system. You got to look at the fact that Newark don't have a lot of industries that create opportunity.
Right.
And because we have no industry, because the education system is not, teaching kids skilled trades, things that they can, if they graduate from high school or when they leave school, they can still have a skilled trade, and college is not the only option of just getting a regular 9 to 5. You got to look at the setup. I think that a lot of the children are not getting thoroughly educated, but then I also look at, Bush, when he passed that No Kids Left Behind bill back in the early 2000s. There's a lot of children that is not moving. They're moving to the next grade, but they're not able to perform at that grade level. They're not leaving. And I remember at one time they wasn't holding the kids back after a while. They were still pushing them through to the next grade. Even if they didn't perform at the level they should, that they wasn't able to perform at. They still pushed them to the next grade. Yeah, no child left behind. You got to assess that. The reason why we having this problem now today. I think sometimes we get, we get sidetracked with, we had Trump in office and all that. But a lot of this stuff started when Bush was in office. You know what I'm saying? The racism, the No Kids Left Behind, pushing kids into the next grade level, and they didn't even perform, at the grade level they was in prior to the grade that they ended up in the following year. So you got to look at a lot of that. No, the single mother households, it takes a community to raise a child. So how you going to just blame the single mothers? I don't understand that.
Yeah,
You know, you have,
yeah,
yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
you have, where's the fathers, right? Or where's the men that's supposed to play the fatherly roles or be that mentor or that example for the children when they step outside, right? Because, you know, you can't just blame the mother when you have the community. You have, like you said, the Boys and Girls Club that don't exist no more. The recreational centers. I remember when I was a kid, they had an after school program at the YMCA. You know what I'm saying? When I was a kid,
That's right.
you know, and they had they had, you know, when I was little on Richter Street, they had Chin School when I was like 4 or 5 years old. People forget about Chin School. Chin School was a great school for children that was in pre-K, kindergarten, getting them exactly that was preparing them for grammar school.
Right, right. So now
you understand?
The only preparing we're doing now is for masturbation. So we gotta understand that, you know, you may be left behind, you know, 12 years out of the school system, but we're gonna make sure that you understand how to masturbate. Okay. So like some of this stuff, it just doesn't make sense. And when you listen to Republicans, what they're saying makes sense. Like the Republicans are the real people who are fighting back against this type of implementation. But it's not about political party for me. This is about something deep. This is about the history of our people. And I don't know which one of you even want to talk about the families that I mean the how many times that we've been buried underneath a lake, right? Because if you're going to blame women, let's talk about the strides that we attempted to make by becoming separate and trying to build our community up, only to be found underneath a lake. Lakes like Lake Linear. Like I don't know if you guys, because I don't understand. I know our leadership has to be aware of that type of history.
Right.
Yeah, they're very aware of it. You talking about sky's the limit with a glass ceiling over our heads. You know, they always said that we're not trying hard enough, but if you look at the history, we tried to do it by ourselves. We tried to create our own communities, okay, that they burnt to the ground or they end up flooding out. So I don't listen to that. When you know the history, you know that's a lot of BS. When they tell us, well, you know, you're not trying hard enough. Y'all lazy. Y'all not working hard enough. That's not true. We had economic bases all around this country back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Okay, that were decimated. Okay, by white hatred. That was decimated by white mobs that came into these areas, you know, and burnt them down. You know, Winston-Salem, Durham, Lake Lanier, Rosewood. Everybody know about Black Wall Street in Tulsa.
That's
right. They don't even talk about the North Renaissance. There was the Harlem Renaissance, but there was the North Renaissance.
That's right.
The first black funded hospital in America was in Newark, New Jersey, right there on West Kenny and High Street back in 1927. And a lot of people don't know that. That should be a monumental spot. There's a church there now. That was the first black funded black hospital that was funded by us, 1927 in Newark, New Jersey.
Wow.
People don't know this history. So we was even doing it for ourselves in Newark back in the early 1900s, not just in the places I just named.
Well,
Newark was a part of that as well.
I don't know how it is. Thank you for that, Rod. I don't even know how it was that we were doing anything, because we've gotten so much messaging that we were just not doing anything. Even if, and maybe Ayo, you would like to speak to this, even when we're seen in film. Again, when we're talking about who is black people, who are black people? Are we Sidney Poitier, right? When we look back at our history in film, are we Harry Belafonte? I don't know if you could bring some enlightenment to us on that topic.
This is going down a rabbit hole, girl. Okay. I'm gonna get back to what you were saying originally about you know, throwing black women under the bus and, you know, placing the blame of, or the ills of society on the laps of black women. Part of the problem we have is black people in this country, and that, again, that is that statement refers to people who are indigenous to this country. We know who we are. We know what we've contributed to this country. This whole game that is being played is not for our benefit. Like, we don't need to be educated on this stuff. We know in our own families who did what, when, where, why, and how.
Right.
The issue is this game, like I said, is being played for the immigrant. So the immigrant is ignorant of American history. The immigrant is ignorant of who Black people are in this country. So therefore, the miseducation is for them. Because if they're not miseducated, they probably would not come here. Because
Right.
to be an immigrant in America in 2022 is to be a thief.
Please back that up. What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
Because what's happening is people from around the world are coming and literally eating off of the indigenous people in America. They're eating our food. They're living in our homes. They're benefiting from our education that we're not getting. Because a lot of the like even in Hollywood, a lot of the actors that you see are not indigenous to this country. So they're standing in our place pretending to be us. It's the same thing with like the civil rights movement. We had the civil rights movement hijacked by foreigners and immigrants. That's number one. Number two, benefits.
Explain that for the audience. I know what you're going at, but explain that a little bit for the audience.
Okay, a lot of the quote unquote civil rights leaders that people like to speak of, and we had a lot of Caribbeans that helped with the civil rights movement. A lot of times those people, or South Americans, they were I don't want to say the wrong thing, but they were agents. I'll put it that way. They were agents, and they infiltrated the civil rights movement to steer it away from the human rights that we were fighting for in our own country to civil rights, which opened up the door for immigrants to benefit for what we were fighting for. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. We've never had a Black president. We've never had a Black vice president. You know what I mean? But we like to pretend, that in 2008 we had one, or in 2020 we had, a first Black, vice president. But that could be further from the truth. That could be further from the truth. So first, we have to identify who is Black, and then why the system that we're in is so that everyone on earth can benefit from Black people, from our labor, from our genius, from our, strength, from our spirituality. Because since we're ignorant of who we are in that sense, everyone can benefit off of our ignorance. Because we don't know who we are spiritually either. But we do know who our family is. We do know what we've done in this country. Like you said, we do know that every war that was fought in this country, we have family members that fought in those wars. We do know that. We do know that we built this country. We know that.
That's right.
We know about the genius in our communities.
Yes.
But what's happening is we're not having access to the real education that's necessary to succeed. We're not having access to the jobs and the business opportunities. We're not having access for that, but people who look like us from other countries are getting that access.
Right.
And see, once you know this, then the question becomes, what are you doing here?
Right.
If
I'm gonna pause you right here. Good stuff.
That's why I said in 2022, if you are an immigrant in this country, then you're in all effect a thief. Period.
Okay. Thank you. Ra.
Yeah, I agree with her. People come here to get unearned benefits off our backs. They come here to establish themselves off of the labor the labor of black, indigenous black Americans. And they know that, because like I said, they'll come around us and say, brother, sister.
Mhm.
But then when you find out they classified as white, you're like, wait a minute, systemically, you're the contrast of what I am. I have no standing in law. You have standing in law being classified as white. But see, they come around us and they play this game to keep us ignorant to really what's going on here. And I think that, like she said, to, being an agent.
Rob, can you, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you explain to the audience when you say they have standing in law and we don't, in case someone doesn't quite understand?
Well, to simplify it is that they are considered citizens once they are given citizenship here, meaning they're classified as white. We don't have we're non-citizens. It's almost like we're illegal aliens that can't be deported, being black, because we have no standing in law being classified as Negro, black, and colored, meaning we're in a dead status. We have no lawful protection. We have no lawful standing, and we don't get proper political representation. This is why when you hear any politician speak, they speak in code words like people of color.
Mm-hmm.
They never mention us, or they tether somebody with us, black and brown. You understand?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. They use code words so they don't have to, really specifically speak to us as a group, because under law we're not considered a group. Like I said, we're not considered a culture. We're not considered a nationality. So that's what I mean. We're non-citizens, and anybody classified as white, they're citizens. They're considered citizens, and this is why you have to watch immigrants that come here, even the ones that are coming from, Africa and the Caribbean, come around us and act like we're all black, but won't tell you that they're classified as white.
Well, most of the time they don't tell you. They pretend that they're black, but they won't tell you they're classified.
But they won't tell you because their opportunities and tangibles is predicated on keeping us mentally incompetent when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a game being played on us. Everybody comes here and use us as a tangible, but acting us like we're all in this together to keep us in the dark. The fact that everybody eats off of us, and none of it is ever reciprocated. This is why when we get out in the streets fighting, everybody stands back and wait till the smoke clear. You know what I'm saying? And whatever tangibles come out of that, they know they're going to be the first ones to benefit off of that. So this is why they don't mind us catching the bumps and bruises, because they know at the end of the day they're going to be prioritized over us.
Excellently said. I want to start to bring this plane down for a landing. And I just want to ask you guys, just in closing comments, not the last comment, maybe next to the last, but we have about 7 minutes left. How dangerous, or if you even think it's dangerous, that these comments are. And matter of fact, let me just go to the comments so that somebody can respond. Lafi Shakur says, I actually watched his speech. It seemed a little more that he was talking about the enabling that is taking place by parents, right? And as far as the guns, they come from the South. Any comments about that, anybody?
Okay, well, who's bringing in the guns? Because the ones who got the most access to the guns is the dominant society. It's not these children that's in these communities. So we got to look and trace the ring. But like I say, if it's coming from governmental operatives, because like I said, a lot of these young boys, that's these gang members, don't even know who started their set. So if you can't really get down to the rabbit hole to see where the core of the problem is at, because you're talking about, people that's protected by the government that's bringing in these guns, then you're always going to have a scapegoat. You're going to need a fall guy. So what you're going to say is, oh yeah, it's the single households that's causing the problems. But you're not trying to find the source of the problem. So I think they're using this problem, as a scapegoat, but it's not the source of the problem.
And if I could just extend something you just said, you're absolutely right. You're 100% on point. When it comes to being a scapegoat, our mayor just made women one, because again, he's in full receipt of the fact that who's running this country, right? The NRA is included, right? The National Rifle Association. So, but he's not going to talk about that. He's going to blame it on the women. And it just has to, the conversation extends a lot further. And like I said, if you're not careful, you already have single parent women, like I said, feeling discouraged because maybe some of them are working 2 jobs to just keep their homes that many are being stolen and taken away unfairly right here in the city of Newark, right? So let's help with that. Let's make commentary and pull some of those funds and get some of these people out to help with that instead of making women the scapegoat for that. Want to add something?
Could I say one more thing? I'm sorry. Let me just say one more thing. They want to speak on the women being on public assistance on welfare. Yeah, and they talking about they're enabling their kids, but the system is, and how are you going to blame the woman, but you're not blaming the system the way that it's structured? Okay, you're not giving any programs or creating any programs, to help parenting or giving them probably better skills on how to parent. You're not helping the children. The educational system is failing these children. These children have no skilled trade. These kids, again, now there's no opportunity out here. So we got to look at this whole, structure as far as, the way that the community is structured. But you got to also look at the setup as far as the government and how it's playing this part in it as well.
Yeah, and I would also, and I'm gonna go to Ayo, I would also be willing to say also when you talk about the skilled trade, we had a gentleman by the name of Phil Wilson who was running for school board. So as a mayor that really cares, how about we run somebody who understands trade, who's made a living, who's gotten married, has a whole house from being an auto mechanic, is dying to help, teach our young people to do it instead of blaming the women. Just the idea. Ayo, I don't know if you want to add anything to that at all.
I'll add my 2 cents. Basically, the whole trope of the single Black woman being the fault or the scapegoat for all the ills of society is tried, and what I want to say is it's been successful for people to just blame Black women for everything. They've been doing it for years. So that's, there's no reason to ask why he's doing it.
Hey, I will talk about that a little bit because some of our young women watching don't know the history with women and how that's been occurring.
Okay, you know what? We had a discussion, Sheila and I, the other day about feminism, right? And I was explaining to her that there's nothing wrong with being a feminist. All that a feminist is somebody who wants, and it could be either gender, who wants equality for women. That's it. That's all that feminism is. But because people have attached negativity to it, people look at the whole thing as negative when you look at the roots of it and the definition, it's not a negative thing. It's just asking for equality. Like if I do 8 hours of work, I would like to be paid the same dollar that you're paid for 8 hours of work, as opposed to 70 cents because my gender is different than yours. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. So the fact that our mayor can sit up here and comfortably blame women or single women for the ills of society or the ills in Newark, New Jersey, it's ridiculous, being that under his leadership, this city has gone down so much. And we've had an uptick in immigration. We've had an uptick in crime. We've had an uptick in Black people, Black families losing their homes. You know what I mean? And he hasn't done anything to address that. And also there are programs that the federal government is funding so that we can have after school programs, so that we can have recreation centers and all that. But they're not doing anything with that funding. That money's going to whoever's pocket. That is not going to the city of Newark. That is not helping the community. So I don't know. It's too much to get into. Like I could
literally stuff. So
here for 5 hours talking about.
That's great. That's a great stuff you just added. Thank you both. I just want to say that we're going to close this out now, and we're going to continue to just bring the information to people, open up for conversation. As I always say, it's not about believing and listening to everything I'm saying. We give you the shovel, start doing your own research. That's what it's about: reading, developing as your very own independent person, and looking beyond what's being said to you, because there's a history here behind everything, and history dictates the future. So a lot of people walking around thinking that, we're just not doing a good job. It's black people, woe is us. We already feel downtrodden. We already feel bad. We're already trying harder than anything all the time. So we need the support, and the support starts with having leadership who understands the black plight, not to make excuses for anything, but to understand. And instead of bashing anybody, you try to help. Instead of having men's meetings, right? Have women meetings. W.A.G.E, right? NJ is a great new women's group here in the city of Newark. We would love to do a partnership up with the city to make sure that we're making sure our women are balanced in how they are raising their kids, how we are seeing ourselves. And we need to see black men as protectors. And with the mayor setting a precedent now for going after black women, that doesn't set a good precedent at all. And we're saying this in love, right? We wage love, not war. And we just want to be better every single day as we move forward. Again, I just want to say thank you to our panelists for coming out and just always, being a part of the conversation, and just bringing facts, bringing receipts, and just being open, to real change in our community. Thank you for each and every one of you for joining our show tonight. And until next time, we're out of here. Peace. We're still
Town, a 14-year-old boy with a record of drug arrests was shot and killed. It was the 10th fatal shooting or stabbing in Newark in 10 days.
Another deadly shooting investigation is underway tonight in Newark. This comes after a wave of violence erupted.
First, let me introduce y'all to the mayor, and I'm saying mayor because that's what it is. Some call me SHEILA or Silver Bullet, just know I'm all about handling biz. First, we're gonna start by saving the kids, making the city a safe place to live. Unlike some people, that's all about self. My only mission right now is to give. And now it's feeling like Resident Evil with all of these fake political leaders. They need to go sit in the bleachers and just stay motivational speakers. Being the mayor is not for the weak. Got my feet on the ground and I'm out in these streets. You can show me with action, it's not what you speak. Say you for the city ain't beat. Lit the city on fire, we're walking through ashes. Parents are tired of giving you passes. Why are our children not learning in classes? Teach about businesses, real estate taxes. Fighting to keep low income housing. So much corruption, it's astounding. Team Newark, we can't allow that. And there ain't no way to get around that. Nothing but change when you vote for me. Time to get back where we supposed to.